The sun rose over Manhattan like it always did, touching the glass towers with golden light, but inside the Langston penthouse, it felt cold and still. The apartment was one of the most expensive in the city. Huge windows, modern furniture, expensive artwork. Everything looked perfect, just like the magazines showed. But inside, something important was missing. Laughter, warmth, the voice of a little boy. Victor Langston stood by the window, holding a cup of black coffee in his hand. His eyes looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from something deeper. He wore a tailored suit, like always, ready to face another day of meetings and business deals. He was the CEO of one of the world's top tech companies, a billionaire known for his intelligence, ambition, and power. People respected him, some feared him, but no one really knew him, not anymore. Behind him, on the soft carpet near the bookshelf, sat his 6-year-old son, Noah. The boy had short brown hair and big, curious eyes. He was drawing quietly with colored pencils, his small hand moving gently over the paper. He didn't speak. He had never spoken, not even once in his 6 years. Of life, Victor turned to look at Noah. His heart ached, like it did every time he saw his son so silent, so distant. He walked over slowly and knelt beside him. "What are you drawing, buddy?" he asked softly. Noah looked up at him but said nothing. He just pushed the paper toward. Victor was a drawing of a woman, long hair, soft smile. She was holding a baby. Victor swallowed hard. He knew who it was. It was Noah's mother, Sarah, the woman Victor had loved deeply, the woman who had died giving birth to their only child. She had been gone for 6 years, but her absence still felt like a fresh wound. Victor put a hand on his son's shoulder. "She would have loved that," he whispered. Noah stared at him for a second, then returned to his drawing. Victor stood up slowly. It had been like this for years. Doctors had called it selective mutism at first. Others thought it was trauma. Some suspected neurological issues. Victor had taken Noah to the best speech therapists, neurologists, psychologists, anyone who might help. But no one could unlock the silence. He had tried everything, spent millions. Special schools, sign language lessons, emotional therapy, music therapy, even hypnotherapy. But nothing worked. Noah remained silent. He understood everything and expressed himself through drawings, gestures, and sometimes writing, but never with his voice. Not a single word had ever come out of his mouth. Victor blamed himself. He had buried himself in work after Sarah's death, too broken to parent, too scared to feel. He had loved Sarah so much that losing her had turned him into someone else, cold, distant, and mechanical. He had given Noah everything except the one thing the boy truly needed: presence. That morning, Victor had arranged another appointment with a specialist uptown. It was a new therapist, someone who claimed to have helped many children with similar conditions. Victor didn't get his hopes up anymore, but he had to try. He helped Noah into his coat and shoes, holding his small hand as they walked to the elevator. Noah didn't resist. He rarely did, just followed his father like a quiet shadow. The car ride was silent, like always. Victor watched Noah in the rearview mirror as the driver took them through the city streets. The boy looked out the window, lost in his own world. The city passed by, bright lights, honking cars, people in a hurry. But inside the car, everything was muted, like someone had turned down the volume of life. The therapy session didn't go well. Noah refused to engage, wouldn't even make eye contact with the new doctor. After 45 minutes of gentle talking and soft questions, the doctor looked at Victor with that familiar defeated look. Another failure. Victor left the office, holding Noah's hand, trying to stay calm. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Noah didn't respond, but his head tilted slightly. Victor looked around. Across the street there was a small diner, old-fashioned, with red booths, a neon sign that buzzed slightly, music playing from a jukebox inside. It wasn't the kind of place Victor usually went to, but something about it felt welcoming. "Let's try there," he said quietly. They crossed the street and entered the diner. The warmth of the place was immediate. The smell of pancakes, bacon, and coffee filled the air. A soft jazz song played from the jukebox in the corner. A waitress walked over with a bright smile. She looked to be in her late 20s, with curly black hair pulled into a messy bun, and a voice that was full of energy and warmth. "Hey there," she said cheerfully. "Welcome to Rosie's. Grab any booth you like." Victor nodded and chose a booth near the window. Noah slid in beside him, looking around curiously. The waitress came over with menus. "I'm Emily. I'll be taking care of you. First time here?" Victor gave a small smile. "Yeah, we just needed a break." Emily looked at Noah and smiled gently. "Well, I'm glad you came in. What's your name, sweetheart?" Noah looked at her, but again didn't speak. Victor spoke for him. "This is Noah." Emily nodded, not missing a beat. "That's a beautiful name. You know, Noah is the name of a songbird in some stories. They say he sings even when he's afraid of the storm." Victor blinked, surprised. He'd never heard that before. Noah just looked at her, his eyes wide. Emily laughed lightly. "I like talking about birds. Sorry, I can be a little weird." She walked away to get their drinks. A few minutes later, she returned with orange juice for Noah and coffee for Victor. As she placed the cups on the table, an old jazz tune started. Playing on the jukebox at last by Etta James, without thinking, Emily began humming along. Her voice was soft, smooth, and unexpectedly beautiful. She started singing gently as she walked back to the counter. Victor looked at Noah, for the first time in days. Maybe weeks, the boy was watching something with real interest. His eyes followed Emily, and his lips moved slightly like he was feeling the rhythm. Then came the strangest thing, a tiny sound. Just a hum, barely audible. But it came from Noah. Victor froze. Noah's fingers tapped the table in slow rhythm, his head slightly swaying. It was small, almost nothing, but to Victor it felt like a miracle. He leaned forward. "Noah." Noah looked at him, and there was something new in his expression, curiosity, maybe even joy. Emily returned with their food, still humming. "Do you sing professionally?" Victor asked, trying to sound casual. Emily shrugged. "Used to. Music tried for Broadway. Didn't work out. Life happened." Victor hesitated, then said, "My son doesn't speak. He's never spoken. But I think it just made a sound." "When you sang?" Emily's eyebrows lifted. She looked at Noah, who was now sipping his juice quietly. "That's amazing," she said. "Maybe he likes music." Nodded slowly. Maybe, after breakfast, they left the diner. But something had changed. The silence in the car didn't feel as heavy. Noah kept glancing at Victor, like he was trying to say something. That night, Victor couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the way Noah had responded to Emily's singing. It was so different from anything they'd tried before. The next morning, he made a decision. Took Noah back to the diner. Emily smiled when she saw them. Back again. Victor nodded. "Yeah, we liked it here." For the next week, Victor kept coming. Every day around the same time, Emily always sang. Sometimes jazz, sometimes lullabies, sometimes pop songs from the 60s. Each time Noah seemed more alive. He would hum, tap his fingers, smile. Victor watched, amazed. It wasn't just about music, it was about connection. Emily spoke to Noah like he was a person, not a patient. She joked, teased, sang, laughed, and Noah responded not with words, but with his eyes, his hands, his energy. One evening, as they left the diner, Victor crouched beside his son. "You like her, don't you?" he asked. Noah nodded. Just once, Victor's heart leapt. That nod meant everything. He looked back at the diner window. Emily was inside, wiping down a table, still singing softly to herself. There was something about her voice that felt like sunlight after rain. Victor stood up, holding Noah's hand. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in years, he felt hope. And all it took was a song. The next morning, the sky was gray, and light rain tapped against the windows of the Langston penthouse. But even with the clouds outside, something felt different inside the home. It wasn't loud or obvious, just a feeling, little warmth, that hadn't been there before. came from a simple moment that had happened the day before. It's inside a small diner with a singing waitress. Victor Langston looked at his son, who sat on the floor, surrounded by colored pencils and paper. Noah was humming softly. It wasn't a clear tune, but there was rhythm, a gentle sound. Victor could barely believe it. 6 years of silence, and now this. His heart ached, not with sadness this time, but with something like hope. He sat beside Noah, watching him draw. The boy didn't look up, but didn't pull away either. He was focused, coloring a picture of a bird with music notes around it. Victor knew that picture meant something. His son was trying to tell him something the only way he could. "You want to go to the diner again?" Victor asked. Noah paused for a moment. Then he gave the tiniest nod. Victor smiled. He hadn't seen his son ask for anything so clearly before, and all because of a song. Or maybe it was the person who sang it. By noon, they were back at Rosie's diner. The rain had stopped, and a few rays of sunlight were peeking through the clouds. The bell above the door jingled as they walked in. Emily was behind the counter, balancing a tray of coffee mugs and laughing with an older couple. When she saw Noah and Victor, her face lit up. "Well, look who's back," she said, walking over. "Twice in 2 days. You're going to get tired." "Of my voice?" Victor shook his head, smiling. "I don't think that's possible." Emily knelt down to Noah's level. "Hey there, Mr. Quiet. You got any requests today? I know all kinds of songs." Noah stared at her for a moment, then very slowly took a small piece of folded paper from his pocket and handed it to her. Emily opened it. It was a drawing his usual style, but this time it was her. She was standing with a microphone in one hand and music notes floating around her. Next to her was a small boy with a smile on his face. The boy had curly lines above his head that looked like sound waves. Emily looked at the drawing for a long moment. Her eyes got a little shiny, but she smiled. "Is this me?" she asked softly. Noah nodded. Emily smiled even wider. "Me singing ... and you singing too? Or humming?" Noah nodded again. Victor couldn't speak. His throat was tight, and he had to look away for a moment to hide how emotional he felt. These small things, just a drawing, just a nod, were massive steps forward. Emily stood up and looked at Victor. "Would it be weird if I said this made my week?" Victor shook his head. "Not at all." Emily didn't need an invitation. 8. Walked over to the jukebox and selected a soft song. This time it was an old classic, "What a Wonderful World" by Louis Armstrong. She didn't sing loudly. She just sang along softly as she returned to their table with menus. Noah's face changed. His fingers began to move, tapping along with the beat. His lips parted slightly and a tiny hum escaped again. Victor saw it clearly now. His son was reacting to the music in ways he never had in therapy. Not once. After they ordered food, Emily came back with their drinks. She didn't sit with them, but she stayed close, humming softly as she wiped the counter. Her presence seemed to comfort. "Noah, you really have a gift," Victor said quietly to her. Emily smiled without looking up. "I used to think so." "What do you mean?" "I went to music school," she said. "Trained in classical and jazz. Even got close to Broadway once. But things didn't go the way I planned. My mom got sick. I had to take care of her. Bills piled up, dreams got smaller. Like singing became something I did in the kitchen, not on stage." Victor looked at her with new interest. "I'm sorry to hear that." Emily shrugged. "Life happens, but I still sing. And if this little guy likes it, then I'm doing something right." That afternoon, after they finished eating, Victor did something unusual. Asked Emily if she'd be interested in working with Noah a few hours a week. He explained that his son had a team of therapists and doctors, but none had connected with him like she had. He wasn't asking her to become a therapist just to spend time with him. Sing, maybe help unlock whatever was inside. Emily looked. "Surprised? You mean like, come to your place? Sing to him?" Victor nodded. "Only if you're comfortable. I'll pay you for your time." "He trusts you, Emily. That's rare." Emily hesitated. "I don't know. I work full-time here. I don't have any training for something like this." "I'm not asking for training," Victor said. "Just your voice, your presence." Emily looked at Noah. The boy was watching her quietly, holding the drawing she had given back to him. "All right," she said softly. "I'll try." 2 days later, Emily visited the Langston penthouse for the first time. She was nervous, even though Victor had told her not to be. The elevator opened into a sleek, modern space that didn't feel like a home. It felt like a museum. Everything was spotless and expensive. But there were no toys on the floor, no photos on the walls, only silence. Noah came out of his room slowly when he saw her. He had a small speaker in his hand and one of his favorite picture books. "Hi, Noah," Emily said gently. He walked up and handed her the speaker. She recognized the song saved on it, "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." Emily smiled. "You want me to sing this?" He nodded. She sat down on the couch and Noah sat beside her, unusually close. Emily started singing, her voice soft and warm, almost like a whisper. Noah closed his eyes, listening. And then he did something even more surprising. He started humming along. It synced at Victor, watching from across the room, felt his heart jump again. It was like watching his son bloom in front of him. The boy was waking up, piece by piece, sound by sound. Over the next week, Emily came every other day. She didn't do anything complicated. She brought music, played songs, read stories in rhythm, and sang lullabies. Sometimes she'd hum as Noah painted or built puzzles. Slowly he began, showing more emotions, smiles, laughter, tapping, dancing in place. He even started to form sounds with his lips, repeating tones she sang. Victor saw it all and felt a deep, aching guilt. Why hadn't he tried music before? Why hadn't he paid more attention to the emotional needs of his son instead of relying only on doctors and schedules? One evening, Victor walked Emily to the elevator. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "What you're doing, it's changing everything." Emily looked at him kindly. "It's not just me. He's the one doing the hard part. He's choosing to come out of his shell." Victor looked down. "Haven't always been there for him. After my wife died, I lost myself. I became a machine. Cold. Focused only on work." Emily didn't judge him. She just nodded. "Grief does that. We shut down to survive." They stood in silence for a moment. "You know," Emily said, "kids are like radios. Sometimes all the parts work, but the signal's just not reaching. Sometimes it takes a certain frequency to tune them in. Maybe music is his frequency." Victor thought about those words for a long time. That weekend, Emily arrived with a small gift, a simple ukulele. "For Noah," she said. "He doesn't have to learn it. Just hold it, strum it, feel the vibration. This might help." Noah took to the instrument faster than anyone expected. He didn't play songs, but he loved the strings, the sound they made, the way it tickled his fingers. He even started matching Emily's humming notes with the ukulele sound. One evening they sang a lullaby together, Emily with words, Noah with humming. It was quiet, broken, imperfect, but it was music. It's their music. One night, as Emily was preparing to leave, Noah ran to his room and returned with a small notebook. He handed it to her. Inside was a page with a simple sentence, written in uneven letters. "Thank you for singing." Emily couldn't stop her tears. Victor watched them both, his throat tight again. His son had never written something like that before. He'd never even expressed gratitude like that. Emily wiped her eyes and smiled. "You're welcome, Noah." Just like that, the world began to change. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but slowly, beautifully. With music, every hum, every smile, every tiny sound from Noah became a sign of healing. And it had all started in a small diner with a waitress who still believed in the power of song even when she had almost stopped believing in herself. The early morning sun peeked through the tall windows of the Langston penthouse. The quiet inside was not the same as before. It wasn't heavy or sad anymore. It was peaceful. Victor sat on the edge of the sofa, sipping his coffee and watching. Something he never thought he'd see in his lifetime. His son Noah sat on the living room floor beside Emily, holding a small ukulele and lightly strumming the strings while she sang a soft tune. He wasn't just listening now. He was joining in, even if it was only with hums and short sounds. Every day since Emily began spending time with Noah, something new and beautiful happened. At first it was just humming, then small sounds, then single syllables. Victor had started writing them down like milestones. Ah, la, ba, sounds that may have seemed meaningless to others. But to Victor, they were everything. Emily was not a trained therapist, but she was something better, someone who truly cared. She didn't follow a fixed method. She followed Noah's energy. Some days they sang children's songs. Some days they just clapped rhythms and made silly noises. Other days she read stories out loud in a sing-song voice, and Noah responded by pointing, smiling, and even trying to copy her tone. One afternoon, Emily brought over a colorful scarf and tied it around Noah's shoulders like a cape. "Today, you're a singing superhero," she said with a grin. Noah giggled, light and clear. Then, while tapping the ukulele, he made a sound that almost sounded like me. He touched his chest while doing it. Victor, sitting nearby, looked up sharply. "Did you say me?" Noah looked at him with wide eyes, then repeated softly, "Me." Victor's hands began to shake. "Emily," he said it. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Yes, he did. From that day on, Victor canceled many of his meetings, stopped traveling for work, started working from home so he could be part of Noah's progress. He didn't want to miss a single step. Every moment was a miracle waiting to happen. Emily began to visit more often. She rearranged her shifts at the diner to make more time. Her own life was still complicated. Her mother's health was fragile. Bills were always hanging over her head, but something inside her had changed. Being around Noah made her feel alive again, useful, like she still had a purpose in the world. Victor began to see things differently, too. Started to talk to Emily not just about Noah, but about her life, her dreams, her past. He learned that she used to sing in underground clubs and that she had once come close to a role in a Broadway show but had to give it up when her mom fell ill. Emily didn't speak of those memories with bitterness, only with quiet acceptance. One evening, after a long session of singing, Noah fell asleep on the couch, his tiny hands still resting on the ukulele. Victor and Emily sat in the kitchen drinking tea. "I've never seen him like this," Victor said. "He's coming out of the dark." Emily smiled. "He just needed the right light." "I didn't realize how alone he must have felt all these years," Victor admitted. "I gave him doctors, tutors, expensive schools, but none of it worked. It was like he was waiting for someone like you." Emily looked down at her cup. "Maybe I was waiting for him too. I didn't say anything for a while after that, but something quiet passed between them, a kind of understanding. A shared emotion that neither of them had expected to feel. As days turned into weeks, Noah's progress grew even more surprising. He started forming more sounds putting together. Simple combinations like Lala, Nama, and Babo. He pointed to things and tried to name them. He even started repeating the last syllable of the songs. Emily sang. But the most unforgettable moment came one rainy evening. Emily was singing a lullaby that Sarah, Noah's mother, used to love. Victor had mentioned it once, and Emily had looked up the lyrics. The song was soft, slow, almost like a whisper. Noah sat beside her, eyes half closed, completely calm. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "Mama." Emily stopped singing. Her voice caught in her throat. Victor, who had been watching from the hallway, froze. Noah looked up. His mouth moved again. "Mama." Victor dropped to his knees beside him. "Noah, say it again." Noah looked at his father, then at Emily, and softly repeated, "Mama." Victor broke down. Tears streamed down his face as he held his son tightly. It was the first real word Noah had ever spoken. And it wasn't just a sound, it was a memory, a feeling, a connection. He remembered her. He had always remembered her. Emily couldn't stop crying either. She knew how much pain was buried in that word. But she also saw how healing it was. For both father and son, that night after Noah had gone to sleep, Victor sat with Emily on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. "You gave him back to me," he said quietly. "I don't know how to thank you." Emily shook her head. "He gave himself back. I just sang." Right. Victor looked at her for a long time. You did more than sing? They didn't speak about it, but something had started to grow between them. Something gentle, like a song starting to build verse by verse. A few days later, Emily brought over a new activity, a game that involved matching musical notes to emotions. She sang different tones, happy, sad, surprised, and Noah had to point to pictures of faces showing those feelings. At first he struggled, but then he began to understand. He matched a high note to a smiling face, a slow, deep note to a sad one. Then he tried to mimic her pitch. Victor watched as Emily clapped and encouraged Noah. He had never seen his son so connected to another human being. Later that week, Victor arranged a meeting with Noah's team of doctors and specialists. He asked Emily to join. The doctors listened carefully as Victor explained Noah's progress. Honestly, one of the therapists said, this is incredible. We've seen cases of delayed speech, but Noah's shift is emotional, not just developmental. Something unlocked. Him, Victor smiled. Someone unlocked him. The therapist turned to Emily. Have you ever considered training in music therapy? Emily was surprised. No, I've never thought I was qualified. You clearly have a gift, the therapist said. You connect with children in a way many of us can't. After the meeting, Emily and Victor walked through Central Park with Noah. The leaves were turning golden, the air cool and fresh. Noah held both their hands, swinging gently between them. You know, Victor said, they're right. You should consider studying it. Emily laughed. And do what? Quit the diner and go back to school? Why not? He asked. I can help. Emily looked at him. You've already done so much for me. I'm not good at accepting help. Victor stopped walking. You helped my son speak. You helped him live. That's not something I can repay with money. Emily looked down. I don't know, Victor. I've spent so long trying to survive. I stopped dreaming a long time ago, and maybe it's time to start again. Noah let go of their hands and walked ahead a few steps, giggling as he chased a leaf floating in the wind. Emily watched him and smiled. Maybe, she said softly. That night, Emily stayed a little longer. She and Noah sat by the fireplace, singing soft lullabies. Victor watched from the couch, his heart full. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in years, it didn't scare him. After Noah had gone to bed, Emily stood by the door, ready to leave. Victor walked her to the elevator. I meant what I said, he told her. Whatever you need, school, books, time off, I'll support you. Emily looked at him. Why are you doing all this? He paused. Because you changed both of our lives, and because I care about you. She looked surprised, but she didn't step away. I care about you too, she whispered. The elevator bell dinged, but neither of them moved. Not yet, and somewhere down the hall, Noah hummed a tune that echoed softly through the quiet. Home, his own voice, his own song, rising like the beginning of a new story. The days passed slowly but beautifully. Each day felt like a small victory in the Langston household. Noah's world was no longer silent. There was sound, laughter, and music weaving through the once quiet rooms. Victor's life had changed. More than he ever thought possible, and so had Emily's. They were no longer just a billionaire father and a diner waitress. They were a team, connected by something more powerful than money or status hope. Noah's progress was steady. Humming had turned into soft words, and soft words into short sentences. Some days Noah surprised them by repeating entire lines from the songs Emily sang, his voice clear but gentle. Victor remembered the first time Noah said, I love you. It was soft, almost a whisper, but the meaning was loud and deep. Words broke through years of silence and pain. Emily continued her visits, coming not just with songs, but with stories, games, and little instruments she had found at thrift shops. She was teaching Noah how to express himself through music, not just with his voice, but with rhythm and movement. Noah loved tapping drums and shaking maracas. He began to dance, moving his body with joy and freedom that was new and thrilling. Victor watched all this from the sidelines, amazed and grateful. He realized how much he had missed by focusing only on Noah's silence as a problem to be fixed. He hadn't understood that Noah's silence was not just about speech, but about fear, confusion, and sadness. Now, through music, Noah was finding a way to say what he couldn't put into words before. One afternoon, Victor invited Emily to join them for lunch on the rooftop garden of the penthouse. It was a rare moment of calm in his busy life, as the sun warmed their faces. Emily and Victor talked about dreams and regrets. Emily told Victor about her life before the diner, the music she loved, the shows she dreamed of performing in, the choices she made for family over fame. Victor shared stories about his own childhood, pressures he faced to succeed, and the loneliness he felt after his wife's death. They both laughed and cried together, finding comfort in their shared vulnerabilities. For the first time, they saw each other as more than just teacher and employer or father and helper. They were two people healing, learning to trust again. Noah played nearby, singing softly to himself as he strummed the ukulele Emily had given him. Suddenly he stopped and looked at them. "Sing with me," he said, his voice steady and clear. Emily smiled, surprised and proud. Victor felt tears welling up. Noah wanted to share music with them, to connect beyond words. They sang together a simple song, a melody of hope and love. Their voices blended in the warm air, carrying a promise of new beginnings. As days went by, Victor's feelings for Emily grew deeper. He admired her strength, kindness, and passion. He wanted to protect her from the struggles she had faced. But more than that, he wanted to be with her, to build something real. One evening, after a long day of progress with Noah, Victor took Emily's hand. "Emily," he said softly, "I know this might be sudden, but I want you to know how much you mean to me. You've changed our lives in ways I can't explain." Emily looked at him, her eyes shining with emotion. "I never expected this," she whispered, "but I feel the same." They didn't need words to understand each other. Their connection was quiet but strong. It's like the music that had brought them together. Meanwhile, Noah's world continued to open up. He started attending a special music class recommended by one of the therapists, where children with different challenges learned to express themselves through song and dance. Emily accompanied him, helping him feel safe and confident. At the class, Noah met other children, and for the first time, he experienced friendship and belonging. He laughed, sang, and moved freely. His face shone with happiness, and Victor saw a side of his son that filled his heart with pride. Victor and Emily worked together to create a supportive environment at home. They filled the penthouse with music, art, and warmth. The empty walls that once felt cold and distant now echoed with sound and life. But life was not always easy. Emily's mother's health declined, and Emily had to balance her time between caring for her family and supporting Noah. Victor stepped in, offering help and understanding without hesitation. Their bond deepened as they faced challenges together. They celebrated small victories and comforted each other during tough times. Their love grew, grounded in shared purpose and respect. One day, Noah surprised them all. During a family dinner, he stood up and sang a song he had been practicing. His voice was clear, strong, and filled with emotion. Victor and Emily watched in awe as Noah's performance became a symbol of hope, healing, and the power of love. Their journey was far from over, but the silence that once defined Noah's life had been replaced with music, laughter, and endless possibilities. And in that transformation, they found not just a son and a teacher, but a family. The months passed, and with every sunrise, the Langston home felt warmer, fuller, and more alive. Noah was no longer the quiet boy who sat alone in his room, lost in silence. He was now a bright, joyful child who sang, laughed, and connected with the world around him. The progress was remarkable, but what made it truly special was the love and patience that made it all possible. Victor watched his son grow with pride and amazement every day. It wasn't just the words Noah was learning to say, or the songs he could now sing. It was the light in his eyes, the spark of hope, joy, and understanding that had finally found its way back. Victor had lived years burdened by guilt and sorrow after his wife Sarah passed away. But now, with Noah's laughter filling the house, those heavy feelings began to lift. Emily, too, had become an important part of their lives, not only as Noah's music teacher and friend, but as someone who brought warmth, kindness, and love into the Langston family. Her visits became more frequent, and soon, she wasn't just the person who helped Noah speak through music. She was family. The change in Emily was just as powerful. She had always been a strong, caring woman who worked hard to support her mother and herself. But now, seeing the difference she was making in Noah's life and feeling Victor's steady support, she began to believe in herself more deeply. She signed up for courses in music therapy, excited about the chance to turn her gift into a real career. Victor made sure she had everything she needed: books, tuition, and most importantly, encouragement. Their days were filled with music, lessons, laughter, and sometimes tears. Noah loved his new music class, where he sang and played with other children. The classroom was a place of joy and freedom, where he was just a kid, not a boy struggling to speak. The teachers noticed his progress, amazed at how far he had come in such a short time. One afternoon, during a school recital, Noah took the stage with Emily by his side. He clutched his little guitar, his eyes shining with excitement. The room was filled with parents and teachers, all eager to hear the children perform. When Noah began to sing, his voice was soft but sure, filled with emotion and courage. Victor sat in the audience, tears streaming down his face. Every note Noah sang was a victory, a triumph over years of silence, fear, and struggle. He knew this moment was more than just a performance. It was a symbol of hope, healing, and the power of love and dedication. After the recital, Victor and Emily celebrated with Noah. They went out for ice cream, laughing and sharing stories. It was a simple moment, but it meant the world to them. Noah's happiness was contagious, and it filled their hearts with joy. As the seasons changed, so did their lives. Victor and Emily's relationship grew stronger, deeper, and more meaningful. They supported each other through challenges and celebrated each other's successes. Victor admired Emily's strength and passion, and Emily appreciated Victor's kindness and patience. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the rooftop garden, Victor took Emily's hand in his. "Emily," he said softly, "you've brought so much light into our lives. I want you to know that I love you." Emily looked into his eyes, feeling a warmth she hadn't known for a long time. "I love you too, Victor." Their love was not just about romance. It was about friendship, trust, and a shared journey of healing and hope. They knew life wouldn't always be easy, but together, they felt ready to face whatever came their way. Noah continued to grow and learn, his world filled with music and love. He was no longer defined by his silence, but by his courage, joy, and the people who believed in him. Victor often thought about Sarah, Noah's mother, and felt grateful that her memory lived on in their hearts. He knew she would be proud of how far Noah had come and how much love surrounded him. The story of the billionaire's son who couldn't speak had become a story of hope, resilience, and the magic of music and love. It showed that sometimes the greatest gifts come from the simplest acts, like a song sung by a kind waitress or a father's unwavering belief in his son. As the night settled over the city, Noah hummed a gentle tune in his room. Emily and Victor listened from the doorway, their hearts full of gratitude and hope. The silence that once defined their lives was gone, replaced by a song that would never end.